Hello everyone, my name is Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. So today, it's been kind of a weird day, but I actually decided to come back to filming today, which I think is probably a really good thing, or it could be a terrible thing that sucks up all of my time. Who knows? Either way, I am back and I am filming and it feels really good. And hopefully I'm going to be back to editing a lot of stuff soon and we'll kind of see how it goes. So, number one, what I wanted to do was go over some like really good books that I've read in my life. Honestly, some of my favorites. These aren't necessarily the best books I've ever read, like books I'd recommend to other people, but these are books that I hold near and dear to my heart for whatever reason. So first one, we have Lord of the Flies by William Golding. So I actually didn't read this in school, which is kind of interesting because most people did, and that's why they didn't like it. Because when you're required to read something, it kind of sucks the joy out of it. But in this case, it's an excellent book. I do think I rated it like 4 or 5 stars when I read it, and I thought it was absolutely excellent. And then next we have Animal Farm by George Orwell. So this is also another classic, which a lot of people also read in school, but again, I didn't read in school. And it's just something that I picked up one day and oh, it's so good. It's so good. It like explains all the issues within communism and totalitarianism in a way that's understandable, which I think is like really good. Maybe not communism. Maybe that's not what I meant. Maybe it started off as communism and then it went to totalitarianism and kind of the issues within that. I'm not extremely well versed on this topic, so I'm not going to pretend to be, but I guess I got quite a bit out of it from what I did understand of it. And other ones here are not classics, but they're ones that I've read, so I'll kind of tell you what they're about as I'm talking about them as well. We have Impulse by Ellen Hopkins. Oh, and this is an excellent book. It's so heart wrenching and like it feels like there's knots in your stomach and it's really depressing and upsetting. But it's easily one of the best books I've ever read. It's not just a favorite, it's easily one of the best. But the problem is, I would not recommend this to everyone. And the problem here is that Impulse is about 3 kids. They're about 16, 15, 16, somewhere around there. And they go to this camp and they're just dealing with, no, sorry, they go to a rehab because they're all dealing with some form of suicide. They all try to hurt themselves and they are trying to heal from that. And it just, some of the depictions in here and some of the reasons that people do things like that. And it's really, really hard to read, but it's a very accurate depiction, I'd say, of what people with certain mental illnesses and mental health go through. Because I read it quite a few years ago now, and it still sticks with me, like how good it is. Next, 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think. So I actually made a dedicated review for this, I think last year. I'll put it up in the cards here somewhere. And I'll put it in the description as well, if whatever is easier for people. This is by Brianna Wiest. And it's just like little essays that go about okay, so this essay collection is hard to put into a box. So part of it is it's a lot about mental health, but it's a lot about figuring out yourself and to a certain extent getting over yourself, but also relating to yourself and others and trying not to be so reliant on others, but also understanding that you can never do things without others. Like you need people sometimes, and that's okay. It's a lot and it's really beautiful. And I think in the review that I did for it, definitely gives it more justice than I am right now. But it's easily one of my favorites. I've read it a couple times and it's really good. I think the third time I read it, I'm going to like tab it up here and maybe read out some of my favorite essays and see if other people can relate to them. I think that would be fun. So we have another Ellen Hopkins, which makes total sense. I read a lot of Ellen Hopkins when I was a teenager, and she explores a lot about mental health, mental illness, societal problems, just a lot. This kind of encompasses a lot of a societal issue and where it can come from, if that makes sense. I'll just tell you. It's called People Kill People by Ellen Hopkins, obviously. And this is about gun violence. Why people are paranoid at times, why people do certain things, why people believe they should be able to kill other people. And it's really intense because like at one point you're just like, whoa, there's no reason you should be killing anybody. But then you kind of get in this one person's head and you can see the revenge and the vengeance they want, and you kind of get it. You kind of like go along with the narrator and you're like, well. Next, we have Lost in the Moment and Found by Seanan McGuire. So this is in the Wayward Children series. A lot of people know about them, and it's pretty much a portal fantasy. So portal fantasies, for those of you who don't know, are fantasies where people go through magical portals and are transported to other worlds. So in the Wayward Children series, you have children that are brought through portals to other worlds as children specifically, and they have to be sure if they want to stay in that place. But if they're not sure, they're spit back out into the real world or the human world or the regular world or the normal world, whatever you really want to call it. And they have a chance to go back, but it's hard to find a door, and they have to be sure that they want to be there. And I think part of this that it's really really encouraging is that they don't let children decide whether or not they're sure, which is a really great point because children can't consent. So I think it's on the eve of their 18th birthday, they're allowed to decide. But this one specifically is about a little girl that her mother meets this man who becomes her stepfather. And we find out that this man has inappropriate ideas about children. I'll just say it like that way. And nothing happens. And that kind of like saved this book for me. Nothing happens to this little girl. She is whisked away by a door before anything can happen. Because I think if it got too intense into graphic detail with that kind of stuff, it would have ruined it. She was whisked away to another world where it had to do with time, and that was kind of interesting. A lot of definitely metaphors and allegories there when you think about time and maturity and consent and all this kind of stuff. And it's a really good book. It's easily my favorite in the series that I've read so far. So definitely a good one to pick up. Okay, we're like halfway through now, sir. Okay, next we have Feed by Mira Grant. And this is a zombie book. And like for those of you who have seen a video maybe like 3 years ago now, I did a live show with Faye from Books and Chocoholic, and we did a zombie live show, and it was so fun. And we read this book, and it was really good. So part of my love for this series may have to do with just that nostalgia of having like a really good buddy read and being able to discuss it with people and have like a really good time with it. I think it's easily one of the best zombie books I've ever read because it's not just about the zombies, it's about the people too. Which is a hard line to do because like you have to focus on the zombie part, like you have to suspend your disbelief, obviously. And this is very scientific as well, but it's like pseudoscience, so it's not like real science. It's like fake science that makes sense, and you don't have to suspend your disbelief as much as you thought you would. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So this is, oh my gosh, it's in 2014. Nice. So essentially there's these reporters and they're trying to uncover this big conspiracy that has to do with the zombies. So the idea is that there was this cure to cancer and to the common cold, and they kind of put it together. It got put together by accident, and it made people into zombies with the only intention is to feed. But it's also like a double title. I don't know how to say that, but like double meaning. Because first it has to do with like feeding, obviously like eating zombie type thing, but also feed as in radio, which I thought was pretty cool. Good book, good book. Next is The Deep by River Solomon. Oh, this is such a good book. I first heard about this book like maybe like 2 years ago, 2, 3 years ago. And it's about a mermaid, and this mermaid has to take on the memories of their people. It's very tough and traumatic for this mermaid because the memories of their people has to do with slavery and ownership and pain and trauma. And it's very difficult to take on all this when it's everyone's pain. Like they take on the pain of everybody, not just themselves. And you have to remember it to have a future. It's very, very deep. It's an excellent book. So this one I don't remember too well. I just remember enjoying it and thinking of it as one of my favorite books of all time. It's kind of more of a mystery literary fiction, which is like not my genre at all. But I'm glad I picked this one up because like it was really, really good. So this is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. So I don't even know how to describe this book. It came out in 2006, which is pretty intense. That like I own this copy and it's like really amazing. Okay, I kind of remember. So it's about this elderly woman, and she is trying to tell her story to a reporter because there is a 13th tale, obviously, that wasn't told when she was doing her writing. So the point is that she's telling the 13th tale, and it's a little harder to describe. It goes into her childhood and some trauma and some craziness, honestly. Like there's this plot twist that is a plot twist. I was not expecting it. There was nothing to tell me that this was coming. Or maybe there was, but I just didn't see it. And it's also about the reporter that is like mesmerized by this author. And I guess it kind of goes into talking about childhood and expectations, and it also goes into what it means to tell a good story, all that kind of stuff. It's definitely about books too. Okay, next book. This one's a big one. So this is Under the Dome by Stephen King. And I feel like Stephen King needs no introduction, obviously. Um, so this book is huge, as you can see. It's over 1,000 pages. And essentially, this book is about this dome, this dome that goes over a city. Think the Simpsons movie, but deeper, more serious, allegories and metaphors within there, and what it means to be human. It's a whole lot of stuff, and it's really, really good. It was a little hard to get through because it's really long, but the chapters are really short, which, like, love it. I think they're like 2 or 3 pages long, and like, there's not too much you can say without there being spoilers because, like, some of the best parts are a little horrifying, which is on par with Stephen King, of course. But it's horrifying in a very human way. It's not horrifying in like a monster type way. It's just very mundane and human, and it's kind of scary in that way. I don't even know if that makes sense, but like, It's a thing. So those were some of my favorite books of all time, at least the ones that I own. I do probably have more favorite books, but like these ones are like the top of my mind and they're the ones that I can pick out very easily. Maybe I'll do a couple honorable mentions if I can think of them off the top of my head. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So to say this book was excellent and haunting and so much packed into one book is an understatement. There's a show for it now. There's a sequel called The Testaments, and it's just I guess like the idea that I'm getting here is that it's very scary in a human way and things that could like legitimately happen type of way. And that I think that's part of the scariest things you can ever read. Like that's the thing with like Stephen King that I was talking about. It's scary in how human it is. So probably some poetry collections that I would say are my favorite. So there's 100 Queer Poems. I don't remember the editor off the top of my head, but I'll put like a picture over here. And oh, some of it's so beautiful. Like it's about queer love, and it's also about queer identity, and also about queer politics, and just all these kinds of things about queerness as a whole. The one poem that I love the most is Let's Make a Baby with Science. And it was so like real and so funny, but also kind of heartbreaking because this poem is about not being able to make a baby with your partner. And this couple specifically was not able to have a baby, so they'd have to make a baby with science. And it was kind of funny at first where they were just like, let's skip all the parties and, let's get all these hormones that we need and let's get all this medication and all this kind of stuff. And they were kind of doing it quirky. And then it was getting a little sadder. And it's just, oh, it's a really good poem. It's really good. And then also there's Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This one was probably my favorite of hers. Like her debut was my favorite out of all of her collections. Because I also have The Sun and Her Flowers and Homebody. But Homebody is like not for a casual read. It's very trauma informed and it's very deep, and some of it's kind of like dark, and it has full emotions in it. So it's kind of a difficult read, but at the same time it's a really good poetry collection. I would recommend that. So after all those honorable mentions, I feel like I have a good all-encompassing video for some of my favorite books of all time. So if you're interested in any of these books or if you've read any of these books, please like comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you hated them or you loved them. And yeah, so I think that's everything. Thank you very much for watching.